For months, the galaxy lived under a shadow that swallowed everything it touched. The Vorath swarm had risen from the forgotten dark edges of the spiral arms like a storm made of metal and hunger. Wherever they went, they left nothing behind. Entire planets, once full of life, oceans, forests, cities, voices, hopes, everything vanished into a black fog of mechanical wings. The swarm did not speak, did not negotiate, did not answer any message. They only consumed. They were endless. They were silent. They were death. Across the galaxy, distress calls filled every frequency. Alien captains screamed through broken signals as their ships burned. Colonies begged for rescue, but rescue never came. Shields collapsed in seconds. Weapons melted in mid-air. Fleets that once stood proudly with banners and bright armor now floated as broken metal in cold space. Every empire kept losing worlds, losing soldiers, losing time. No one had any weapons strong enough to stop the swarm. No one had the courage to fight them anymore. Hope was disappearing like smoke in vacuum. Inside the Galactic Council Hall, a place of marble floors and glowing crystal towers, the leaders of 100 species gathered. Their faces were pale, their voices cracked, their hearts crushed under fear. They had argued for days, blaming one another, accusing old enemies, begging former rivals to unite. But nothing worked. Every plan had failed. Every map of the galaxy showed the same thing, black lines spreading like cracks, reaching toward inhabited systems. Then the doors opened. A trembling ambassador from the Lurex Empire stumbled forward. His skin, once bright silver, had turned dull with exhaustion. His hands shook as he held a broken data tablet. He tried to speak, but his voice cracked. Then he collapsed to his knees in the center of the hall, his forehead touching the cold stone, his breath heavy with terror. "Anyone, please," his voice echoed softly but painfully through the chamber. "Someone help us. Our sons are dying. Our people have nowhere to run. Please, someone answer us." The entire hall went silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Some leaders looked down, ashamed. Some looked away, afraid to meet his eyes. A few closed their eyes and prayed to ancient gods that had never answered before. They all knew the truth. Helping him meant facing the Vorath swarm. And no one had the power to do that anymore. For a moment, it felt like the galaxy had already accepted its death. The only sound was the quiet hum of the council room lights. Then, a sound of heavy boots echoed sharply on the polished floor. The double doors at the back of the hall slid open with a deep mechanical thud. Every head turned slowly, expecting another desperate ambassador, maybe another broken survivor, maybe even a council guard. What they saw instead froze the blood in their veins. A tall human woman stepped forward, her uniform black as deep space. Her coat reached her knees, lined with silver edges that reflected the council lights like tiny stars. Her hair was tied back tightly, and her eyes, those sharp, cold, unblinking eyes, looked like they had seen 1,000 wars and survived all of them. She walked with calm, controlled steps, as if time itself obeyed her pace. Admiral Elena, Cross of Earth. Many in the chamber had heard of her name in rumors. Some said she commanded the most elite human fleet ever built. Some said she had vanished for 10 years working on something secret. Some said she was ruthless. Some said she was a savior. No one really knew. But as she walked down the long aisle in complete silence, every species in the room felt the same cold ripple down their spine. Something had changed. In her hand, she held a single steel case, matte black, secured with glowing blue locks. She carried it as if it weighed the galaxy itself. 2 human officers followed her, but they stayed near the door when she raised a hand without looking back. She wanted to stand alone. She wanted the galaxy to see Earth without support, without shields, without fear. When she reached the center table, she placed the steel case gently on the surface. For a long moment, she said nothing. She simply looked at the gathered council, her expression blank, unreadable. Even the trembling Lurex ambassador lifted his head slowly, watching her as if hoping for a miracle but fearing another disappointment. Then Admiral Elena spoke. One sentence. Soft. Cold. Unshaken. Earth has heard your cries. The words moved like a shockwave across the room. Leaders sat up straight. Some gasped quietly. Some leaned forward. Even those who hated humans, even those who distrusted Earth for refusing alliances for decades, every single one of them felt something they had not felt in a long time. Hope. Elena pressed her thumb against the glowing lock on the steel case. Click. The top lifted. A hologram projector activated with a low, rising hum. Then light burst into the air. A massive hologram filled the entire chamber, reaching all the way to the ceiling, a detailed 3D map of Earth's moon. But around it, wrapped behind it, hidden in its shadow, was something no one expected. A human armada. Not one fleet. Not 10 fleets. Thousands of warships. They were arranged in layered formation, each line stretching so far that the hologram had to expand to show their full scale. Giant dreadnoughts that looked like floating continents. Long carrier ships that held entire cities' worth of aircraft inside them. Rail cannons the length of mountains. Stealth cruisers with hulls like liquid night. Their engines were silent in the projection, but their presence felt louder than thunder. The galaxy had never seen ships like these. Never imagined numbers like these. Never expected this from Earth, a planet the Council believed preferred isolation and peace. A murmur exploded through the chamber. What is this? How long have the humans been building these? This is impossible. No species has this many dreadnoughts. They hid this for decades. They prepared for war. Some leaders stood in shock, their eyes wide, their breathing fast. 2 fainted almost instantly. A representative from the small Trilon race began crying softly, overwhelmed. Others simply stared, unable to believe the scale of what they were seeing. The Vorath swarm had destroyed hundreds of fleets. It had eaten through the strongest weapons. It had crushed every defense. But the humans had brought something the swarm had never faced before: superior planning. Superior firepower. Superior resolve. And in the chamber, every species, friend, enemy, neutral, hopeless, suddenly realized something chilling. Earth had not stepped forward earlier because they were unprepared. Earth had stepped forward now because they were ready. Admiral Elena let the hologram rotate slowly, showing the armada from every angle. The ships gleamed like polished blades. Their weapons glowed with contained suns. Their formation was perfect, engineered with precision only humanity could achieve. Then she spoke again, her voice firmer, deeper, unbreakable. The Vorath swarm has consumed the galaxy long enough. Earth will not allow it to continue. The council hall felt colder. The lights seemed dimmer. The silence grew heavier. Because behind her words, there was no offer of diplomacy. No discussion of treaties. No request for shared command. No demand for authority or payment or territory. Nothing. Humanity had come not to negotiate. Not to beg. Not to ask. Humanity had come to end the swarm. Admiral Elena closed the steel case with a sharp click and looked at the Lurex ambassador still kneeling on the floor. She extended a hand to help him stand. Her gesture was not soft, not gentle, it was firm, steady, strong. "Your people will not die today," she said quietly. "Not while humanity still breathes." The ambassador's eyes filled with tears. His hand shook as he gripped her arm, but his voice returned, filled with fragile hope he had forgotten existed. "Thank you, Admiral, thank you." Around the hall, leaders whispered in disbelief. Some clapped their hands together in relief. Others trembled with fear, not fear of the swarm anymore, but fear of Earth's unimaginable strength. Because if humanity could hide this much power for so many years, what else were they capable of? Admiral Elena turned away from the council, her coat flowing behind her like a shadow of war. She walked toward the exit with steady steps, her officers falling in line behind her. Before she reached the doorway, she stopped and spoke without turning back. "Prepare your worlds. The human fleet moves at dawn." With that, she walked out. The doors closed, and the galaxy, a galaxy that had been drowning in fear for months, stood frozen in silence. Some whispered. Some prayed. Some cried. Some trembled. Because for the first time in ages, as Admiral Elena Cross stepped out of the council hall, the doors sealing behind her with a heavy metallic sigh, the entire galaxy felt a strange shift in the air. For months, every species had lived under fear so strong it felt like a weight on the chest. But now, that fear was mixed with something new, something sharp, something powerful, something dangerous. Hope. But a hope wrapped in steel and fire, a hope so intense that even those who prayed for salvation trembled as they whispered Earth's name. Humanity had heard their cries. And that truth alone felt like thunder rolling across the stars. Admiral Elena walked down the long silver corridor of the Council spire, her boots echoing softly, but each step carried the weight of millions of lives. Her jaw was tense, her eyes locked forward, her mind already deep inside the coming war. Her officers followed quietly, matching her pace, their shoulders tight with a mixture of duty and fear. They all knew what was coming. They all knew that the moment Earth stepped into the battlefield, there would be no turning back. The galaxy would remember this war for 1,000 years, win or lose. Outside, the night sky of the Council planet shimmered with floating lights and tall transparent towers that reached into the clouds. But even those bright towers looked dull tonight. Because above them, the dark horizon showed the faint outline of something terrifying. The Vorath swarm's vanguard had entered the system's outer edge. Their shadow stretched across the stars like a rip in the universe. The Council planet had only days before the swarm reached them. As Elena boarded her shuttle, she heard the faint whispered panic from the Council guards. Is it true, humans hid that many ships? Did they plan this for years? Are they even stronger than the swarm? Or are they worse? Elena didn't react. But inside her chest, a quiet, painful heaviness pressed down. She didn't want the galaxy to fear Earth. She didn't want them to see humanity as a monster standing next to another monster. But after everything the swarm had done, after every dead world, every burning system, every child crying into the void, Earth could not afford softness. Earth could not afford hesitation. Earth had to be the storm. The shuttle lifted smoothly into the sky. A soft hum filled the cabin. Elena closed her eyes for a moment, not to rest, but to steady her heart. She remembered the message from her brother on Earth, just 2 days ago, a video of his daughter, only 6 years old, drawing pictures of stars. She had drawn the Alios, Elena's flagship, with bright blue windows and little stick-figure humans waving from inside. On the edge of the page, she had written, "Auntie Elena saves the galaxy." Elena did not feel like a savior. But she would fight like one. The shuttle broke through the clouds, entering the upper stratosphere. And then the stars opened before them, beautiful, cold, infinite. Dozens of human tactical cruisers waited silently, their hull lights blinking slowly in greeting. They formed an escort around her shuttle, guiding her toward the heart of humanity's hidden power. Minutes later, the shuttle arrived at the Alios. The flagship was enormous, larger than any alien ship, larger even than some smaller space stations. Its metallic surface reflected the starlight like stretched silver armor, smooth and flawless, with ancient Terran markings carved into its spine. The engines glowed a soft blue, containing energy dense enough to power a city for centuries. It was a ship built not just for war but for absolute victory. As Elena stepped onto the bridge, every officer snapped to attention. Admiral on deck. The bridge lights brightened slightly. Massive windows showed the galaxy outside. Officers sat at their consoles, screens filled with maps, swarm movement, fleet positions. The tension was thick but controlled. These were humans. They had trained their entire lives for the day the galaxy would need them. Elena walked to the center platform. Status report. Captain Rios, her second-in-command, stepped forward. His face was tight, but his voice steady. "Admiral, the Vorath swarm has consumed 8 more systems in the last 30 hours. Their movement is accelerating. Based on their trajectory, they will reach the Lurex homeworld within 70 hours. A low fear rippled across the bridge, not loud, not panicked, but deep. Elena nodded, her voice calm as stone. "And our fleet? All ships are in position. Dreadnoughts Titan, Horizon, and Vengeance ready. Carriers loaded with strike wings. The Novalance prototype is installed and stable, but still untested in live combat. The Novalance. Humanity's forbidden miracle. A weapon powerful enough to tear through the swarm but dangerous enough to tear space itself if misused. The very memory of Project Embercore, the star fragment technology, sent a cold shiver through even the bravest officers. Elena placed one hand on the railing. Her voice softened slightly, almost invisible to those who didn't know her well. "We won't get a second chance. If we fail, the galaxy falls." Her words were simple, but every officer felt them like a blade across the heart. She activated the intercom. Her voice carried through every deck, every corridor, every ship across the entire human fleet. This is Admiral Elena Cross. All units, all soldiers, all pilots, humanity rises today. The galaxy calls for help, and we answer with fire and steel. The Vorath swarm has brought darkness to countless worlds, but it ends now. We carry not just our own flag, but the hope of billions. Stand firm. Stand united. Stand human. Across thousands of ships, soldiers clenched their fists. Pilots strapped into cockpits. Engineers wiped sweat from their foreheads. Some cried quietly. Some whispered promises to families back home. But none stepped back. None hesitated. Humans did not run. Humans did not hide. Humans stood. As the speech ended, Elena turned to her tactical officer. Begin fleet acceleration. Destination, Lurex Prime. I, Admiral. Plotting course. The engines roared to life, not loud, not explosive, but deep, powerful, like the heartbeat of a giant. The stars outside shifted as the fleet prepared for faster-than-light travel. But before the jump could begin, an alert flashed red across the bridge. Admiral, priority transmission from Lurex Prime. Elena nodded. Put it through. The screen lit up. A blurry image appeared, an alien general from the Lurex army, his armor cracked, smoke rising behind him. His voice was shaking. Admiral, the swarm, they have reached the outer moons, our defenses are falling. A loud explosion cut through the transmission. Screams echoed. The general looked back, his eyes full of despair. They are here. Please hurry, please. The screen went black. Silence stabbed through the room. A young officer covered his face, fighting tears. Another whispered, "We're too late." Someone else muttered, "No, we can't lose another world." But Admiral Elena did not flinch. Engage FTL. The stars stretched into white lines as the fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel, the soundless scream of engines carrying billions of hopes with them. The crew felt the weight of what they were doing, not just a mission, not just war, but a final stand for the galaxy. As the Alios shot through the cosmic river of light, Elena stood alone at the front window. Her reflection stared back at her, a woman who had been shaped by war, carved by loss, hardened by necessity. But behind those cold eyes was a human heart beating with fierce determination. "We're coming," she whispered to the dying world. "Hold on just a little longer." And the fleet raced toward the darkness that had swallowed half the galaxy. This was not just a battle. This was humanity's promise. A promise sealed in fire. A promise that would shake the stars. The human fleet burst out of faster-than-light travel like a silent explosion of steel and starlight. One moment, the Lurex system was drowning in black shadows. The next moment, thousands of human warships tore open the darkness, engines burning blue, cannons locked, formation tight enough to make the stars tremble. The bridge of the Alios shook gently from the shockwave of the jump, but inside, every officer froze at the sight before them. Lurex Prime was dying. The sky of the planet was covered by a horrifying storm, billions of metallic insects swirling like a living hurricane, their wings clashing so loudly that even from orbit, sensors picked up the vibrations. The swarm had wrapped around the world like a cocoon of death. From space, the planet looked like a glowing blue orb being swallowed by a rising sea of black fire. Admiral Elena stood perfectly still, her hands gripping the railing, her breath steady but heavy. She had seen war. She had seen planets fall. But she had never seen anything like this. The swarm didn't attack out of anger. It didn't conquer out of greed. It consumed because consumption was its nature. And now, it had reached the heart of the Lurex Empire. "Admiral," Captain Rios whispered, unable to take his eyes off the screens, "the swarm numbers, they're higher than predicted. At least 3 times larger." Officers exchanged horrified glances, their throats tightening. One young ensign whispered to himself, "How can anything fight that?" Elena didn't blink. "We can. And we will." Her voice hit the room like iron. "Prepare all dreadnought batteries. Launch strike wings. Carriers move to defensive spread. We break their orbit first." Alarms blared through every ship of the human armada. Hangar doors rumbled open. Pilots sprinted into their fighters. Engineers yelled, pulling levers, locking weapons in place. Battleships shifted into attack formations like giant predators waking from sleep. Outside the Alios, hundreds of fighter wings roared into the void, sleek black ships with blue trails slicing through the darkness, heading straight for the swarm. The Vorath reacted instantly. The black clouds twisted, thousands of small metallic creatures breaking away and swarming toward the human fighters. Their movement was unnatural, like a river flowing backward, like smoke alive, like nightmares learning how to fly. The galaxy watched the live broadcast from distant planets, children hiding behind their parents, elders whispering prayers, leaders gripping their seats until their knuckles turned white. They had seen fleets try and fail. They had seen worlds fall. But they had never seen humanity fight with its full strength. The first clash came like thunder. Human fighters fired blue plasma bursts that tore paths through the swarm. Swarm fragments exploded like sparks, scattering across space, only to reform and attack again. The fighters danced through the black storm, weaving and rolling with impossible precision. Some were swallowed whole, vanishing without a sound. Others cut through entire wave clusters with pinpoint accuracy. Sector 12 losing fighters. Carriers requesting reinforcement. Swarm density doubling, tripling. Admiral, they're adapting. Elena's jaw tightened. The swarm learned with every attack. Every second. Bring the dreadnoughts forward. The Alios engines roared as human dreadnoughts, the titans of Earth, moved like mountains sliding across space. Their armor glistened with starlight, their cannons glowing with deadly white heat. Target central mass of the swarm, Elena ordered. Fire at my command. The swarm sensed danger. Like a massive, singular mind, it redirected its billions toward the dreadnought line. Space grew darker. The roar of swarm wings echoed through every frequency. Even the ship's hull vibrated. Steady, Elena whispered. The swarm hit 100 kilometers. Steady. 70 kilometers. Space itself seemed to hold its breath. Fire. The sky lit up. Every dreadnought unleashed its main batteries at once, giant beams of blue-white energy ripping through space, splitting the swarm like a knife through ocean water. Shockwaves blasted across the battlefield. Thousands, no, millions, of swarm creatures disintegrated instantly, turning into glittering dust that floated through the void. The galaxy gasped. Hope returned. Burning bright. Burning wild. But then the swarm screamed. Not through sound. Not through words. But through a vibration that hit every ship, every mind, every bone. And the swarm grew angrier. The black clouds compressed into a tighter mass. They slammed into the dreadnought shields, creating explosions like collapsing stars. The Alios shook violently, sparks flying from consoles. Officers grabbed onto railings as the bridge tilted from the impact. Shields dropping to 60%. Swarm breach detected on Titan's left flank. Admiral, they're crawling across the hull. Elena's heart tightened, but her voice stayed strong. All ships focus fire. No retreat. Hold the line. Even at the edge of death, humans did not step back. Across the battlefield, human fighters started forming protective rings around injured ships, pushing the swarm back with everything they had. One pilot's voice cracked through comms. For Earth, for Lurex, don't fall, Titan. The Titan trembled, its hull glowing red from swarm impact. But the human fleet refused to let it fall. Carriers released emergency drone wings. Cruisers fired rapid plasma barrages. The swarm began to break apart again, torn, crushed, driven back. Then suddenly, a new signal appeared on sensors. A single swarm entity, larger than any before, rising from the planet's shadow. It looked like a twisted skeletal dragon made of black metal and fire. Its scream shook the entire system. The swarm apex, Captain Rios whispered. Admiral, this is the one that controls them. Elena felt a cold fire spread through her chest. Finally. She stepped forward, eyes locked on the giant creature. Focus all dreadnought fire on the apex. Fighters, pull back. Carriers reassign support to the left flank. Prepare the Alios forward cannon. The bridge fell silent. Every officer knew what this meant. The Alios forward cannon was powerful. But firing it meant exposing the Alios. Leaving it vulnerable. Risking everything. Rios turned slowly. Admiral, if we miscalculate. We won't. Her voice was quiet but absolute. Humanity didn't come here to survive. We came to win. The apex roared and flew toward the Alios with terrifying speed, swarm clouds wrapping around it like living armor. The skies darkened. The battlefield felt smaller. Even the light dimmed. Range closing, 40 kilometers. 30. 20. Elena, that thing will hit us head-on. Fire when ready. 10 kilometers. 5. 2. The apex opened its jaws, a burning sphere forming inside. The Alios cannon fired first. A beam of pure white energy exploded from the ship's bow, slamming into the apex at point-blank range. Space lit up brighter than a newborn star. The impact ripped across the battlefield, shredding swarm clouds, melting metal wings, shattering entire wave clusters. The apex screamed in agony, its armor cracking, its fire dimming, its body splitting apart. The galaxy watched breathless. And then, the apex fell. It broke into burning shards that scattered into the void. A wave of silence swept through the swarm. Then millions of units collapsed, losing control without their leader. The black clouds dissolved into drifting ash. The human fleet had won the first battle, but Elena did not smile. She did not celebrate, because she saw what the others did not behind the dying swarm fragments. A deeper shadow moved. A shadow the size of a small moon. The true swarm was coming, and humanity was not ready. The battlefield should have felt victorious. The explosion of the apex should have brought cheers, relief, even a moment of peace. But the silence that followed did not feel like victory. It felt like the universe was holding its breath again, tighter than before, as if waiting for something far worse. The dying sparks of the shattered apex drifted through space like falling stars, their glow fading slowly, gently, beautifully. But behind that beauty, the shadows deepened. Something massive stirred beyond the ruins. Admiral Elena Cross stood on the bridge of the Alios, her eyes locked on the dark horizon. Her breath was steady, but her heart felt a weight she had not allowed herself to feel in years. The first battle had cost them too much. Dozens of fighters gone. 2 cruisers critically damaged. The Titan barely holding its structure together. And half the human fleet was low on ammunition. But something deeper worried her, an instinct, a cold whisper crawling up her spine. The apex was only a warning. "Admiral," Captain Rios said, his voice thin, brittle, afraid to break the tension. "Swarm signatures are still active. Not decreasing, increasing." Elena didn't move. She didn't blink. "How many?" Rios swallowed hard. "Updating count now." The tactical screens flickered, scanning the void. Officers leaned forward, anxious. Then the numbers appeared. Gasps erupted across the bridge. Some clutched consoles. One officer dropped his tablet. The swarm was not decreasing. It was doubling, tripling, growing at a speed no one could understand. Elena's voice was soft, but her words were sharp enough to cut steel. "Put it on main screen." The stars shifted as sensors focused. What appeared made every human aboard the fleet freeze. A black wall. A literal wall stretching across space, moving like a single living organism. Not billions. Not trillions. Something beyond counting. The swarm was not a storm, it was an ocean. And that ocean was rising to consume them. Rios whispered, "Admiral, that's not a fleet, that's extinction." The wall of black metal twisted and surged, forming shapes that looked like wings, claws, jaws, like every nightmare ever imagined. But it wasn't the size that broke the courage of soldiers. It was the sound. A low vibration that shook every ship, every hull, every bone. It was like the swarm itself was speaking, not in words, but in hunger. The Lurex planet below screamed through their comms. Thousands of voices crying at once. Cities falling. Skies blackening. People begging for evacuation that humanity couldn't provide fast enough. An engineer shouted, "Admiral, the swarm is absorbing the fragments of the apex. They're rebuilding something, something bigger." Another voice, "Incoming wave. Velocity rising. Distance closing fast." Rios looked at Elena, his composure slipping for the first time. Elena, if they reach us in this state, we can't hold the line. The truth was painful, but Elena didn't deny it. She knew it already. When the apex died, the swarm didn't lose strength, it evolved. It adapted. It came back hungrier, more unified, more monstrous. The humans had wounded the beast, and now the beast was furious. A young officer at communications trembled as she spoke. "Admiral, global distress call from Lure Prime. They're saying their shield is failing. Population centers collapsing. They're asking if the human fleet, if we're still coming." Elena closed her eyes for a moment. Not to rest. Not out of fear. But out of grief. She could hear echoes of the children, the families, the people who still believed the galaxy hadn't abandoned them. She imagined her niece drawing pictures of heroes, believing humanity would save everyone. But heroes didn't always save everyone. Heroes saved who they could. She opened her eyes, colder and stronger than before. "Rios," she said, "bring me the Ember Core." The entire bridge froze. The Ember Core was humanity's last secret weapon, locked deep within the Alios, a fragment of a dead star, compressed beyond understanding, capable of powering the Novolance or turning space inside out. A weapon of hope. A weapon of horror. Rios stared at her, horrified. "Elena, using the Ember Core now could destabilize our engines. If it overloads, we die," Elena said calmly. "Yes. And if we miss the swarm, the planet dies," she finished softly. Rios looked down, the weight of the galaxy sitting on his chest. "There must be another way." "There isn't." Her voice carried the quiet pain of someone who had made this decision years before the galaxy ever asked for it. The Ember Core chamber opened deep inside the Alios. Engineers moved with shaking hands, unlocking the glowing cube that pulsed like the heart of a sun. The closer they got, the hotter the air became. The lights flickered. The ship groaned as if it sensed what was coming. Back on the bridge, Elena watched the swarm accelerating. The black wall broke apart into countless spear-like formations aimed directly at the human fleet. Their speed was unnatural, impossible, like physics bending to their will. The first wave would hit in minutes. "Admiral," the tactical officer said, voice breaking, "swarm density over 95%. They're targeting our dreadnought line. If they break through." "They won't," Elena said. But even she didn't know if that was true. The comms screen flickered again, Lure Prime. A child's voice, crying, shaky. "Is humanity coming? Please, please don't leave us." Elena's throat tightened. Humans never ran. Humans never abandoned those who asked for help. Not now. Not ever. Rios whispered, "Elena, if the Ember Core overloads, the Alios won't survive." She finally looked at him. Her expression wasn't fear. It wasn't regret. It was resolve carved into stone. "We don't need to survive," she said softly. "We just need to win." The swarm moved closer. The Alios' engines growled. The Ember Core pulsed brighter. The Novolance charged with the energy of a dying star. Engineers shouted as power levels rose beyond safe limits. The ship trembled, lights flickering, consoles sparking. "Admiral, the core is unstable. Containment dropping. We're losing structural integrity." Elena raised her hand. "Hold it." The swarm hit visual range. A wall of black wings stretching across the sky like the universe itself had turned into a monster. Human officers stared at it with shaking breaths. Some prayed silently. Some whispered names of their families. Some simply stood frozen between fear and duty. The swarm began to open, forming a giant maw of metal and fire. Rios shouted, "Elena, fire now. If we wait." "Not yet," she whispered. The swarm screamed. The human fleet trembled. The Ember Core burned. The Novolance hummed like a star being born. Still. Elena waited. 1 second. 2. 3. And then she saw it. A flash. A weakness. A moment when the swarm's formation dipped. Now. The Alios released the Novolance. A beam of white fire, brighter than any sun, exploded from the ship's core, tearing through space, ripping into the heart of the swarm. The shockwave blinded sensors. The battlefield turned into pure white light. The swarm shattered, thousands of fragments breaking, melting, burning. For a moment, it looked like victory, but then, a sound. A deep, ancient, horrifying sound. The swarm wasn't dying, it was waking up. Beneath the broken layers, something enormous, something alive, something sentient, opened its eyes. The true swarm mind. Elena's heart stopped for a beat. Rios whispered, "No, no, it can't be." The real battle had just begun. The blast from the Novalance should have ripped the swarm apart. The white fire should have turned the black clouds into drifting ash. Every calculation said the beam was enough to destroy anything, anything alive, anything mechanical, anything that dared challenge the combined might of human science and human fury. For a few seconds, the battlefield looked like victory. Blazing light stretching across the void, fragments of broken swarm creatures glimmering like dying stars, silence echoing through the Lurex system. But then the light faded. And something still stood inside the heart of the blast. Something enormous. Something ancient. Something alive. As the glare dimmed, the Alio's sensors finally stabilized, projecting the shape onto the main screen. Every officer on the bridge felt their breath choke inside their throats. A colossal entity, larger than a dreadnought, larger than the Apex, larger than any swarm form ever recorded, rose from the burning remains of lesser units. Its body was a shifting mass of black metal plates and glowing red lines pulsing like veins. Dozens of jagged limbs extended like spears. Its wings were made of millions of microblades. Its head, if it could even be called a head, held two enormous burning cores that looked disturbingly like eyes. The swarm mind. The creature that commanded the billions. The one the Apex served. The one the galaxy had prayed they would never see. The one humanity's attack had awakened. A whisper passed through every ship as the sight hit them like a cold knife. "Oh God, what is that? We didn't hurt it, we woke it up." On the Alios, an ensign dropped to her knees, tears spilling silently. A veteran soldier clenched his fists so tight his knuckles turned white. Even Rios stepped back, unable to speak for a moment. The swarm mind moved. And the universe seemed to move with it. It raised one of its massive limbs, slow, deliberate, intelligent, and the entire leftover swarm reacted instantly. The broken fragments in space snapped back together like pieces of a shattered puzzle being forced into place. Hundreds of thousands of units regenerated from raw metal dust, as if death meant nothing. Then the swarm mind opened its jaws. Not to scream. Not to attack. But to speak. A vibration tore through all frequencies, bypassing radios, sensors, even shields. It hit the human fleet like a deep thunder rumbling inside their bones. "Who, mans?" The voice was ancient and metallic, broken yet horrifyingly aware. The sound made consoles spark. The lights flickered. Some officers fell to their knees, covering their ears though the sound wasn't coming through speakers. Captain Rios whispered, shaking, "It's intelligent." Elena's face hardened. "Yes. And it knows we hurt it." The swarm mind's burning eyes fixed on the Alios specifically, as if it could see Elena standing there through thick armor and glowing shields. "Who are mans, fight, well, you, burn, bright." Then its wings spread, black storms stretching miles across space. "So, you, die, first." The swarm moved. Not like before, not as chaotic waves or scattered clouds. Now it moved with precision, formation, intent. Like a single organism made of countless pieces, each one following the mind's command with deadly purpose. The swarm surged toward the human fleet in a black tsunami. "Brace for impact." Elena shouted. The wave hit. The Alios lurched violently, alarms screaming across the bridge. Swarm creatures slammed into the shields like meteors, sparks flying across the hull. Human fighters were swallowed instantly. Carriers took direct hits, some engines exploding in showers of flame. A cruiser broke apart, its metal skeleton twisting before vanishing into the swarm. A young officer screamed, "They're everywhere, everywhere, oh God." "Focus." Elena snapped. But even she felt fear rising like cold water around her heart. The Titan dreadnought fired all main cannons, beams slicing through the swarm, but new units filled the gaps instantly. Its shields flickered, then collapsed. The swarm crawled across its hull like insects devouring a corpse. Titan is losing hull integrity. Admiral, they're breaching the dorsal side, we're going to lose her. Elena clenched her jaw. Divert cruiser shields to Titan. Full support. It won't be enough, someone cried. It has to be. But the Titan shuddered as the swarm burrowed into its armor. Sparks and flames erupted along its spine. With a final groan, the dreadnought snapped in half, exploding into a silent fireball that lit up the battlefield before being swallowed by darkness. Officers froze. They had trained their whole lives. They believed in humanity's strength. They believed in the Alios. Yet watching a Titan fall broke something inside them. Rios whispered, Elena, if the Titan couldn't survive, what chance do we? We're not dead yet, she cut in sharply, but her voice trembled for half a second, a rare crack, a sign of the weight crushing her. Another explosion shook the fleet. A carrier's engines went dark. Human fighters scattered. The swarm reformed, creating spear-like formations that stabbed through the defensive line. Admiral, multiple ships requesting evacuation routes, we can't hold formation, the swarm is splitting us apart, we need orders, any orders. The bridge descended into chaos. Elena slammed her hand against the console. Enough. The room fell silent instantly. She stepped forward, eyes burning with something deeper than fear, something painfully human. We are not losing this system. We are not abandoning Lurex Prime. Not while anyone is still alive down there. If the swarm mind wants humanity first, then humanity stands first. Rios swallowed. Elena, the Ember Core is unstable. The Novolance is offline. The fleet is breaking. Then we hold the line with what we have. Her voice wasn't loud. It was steady. It was fire. Activate defensive wall. Bring all surviving ships around the Alios. Prepare close combat weapons. We keep them away from the planet at all costs. Officers looked at her with disbelief and awe. She was asking them to stand against an ocean with a handful of stones, but no one refused, because the galaxy had given up. And humanity refused to. The swarm mind watched their repositioning with interest, tilting its head slowly, almost mockingly. Who a man's, stubborn, its wings folded. Its claws extended. Its eyes burned brighter. Good. The swarm surged again, stronger, faster, angrier, and humanity prepared to make its final stand. The human fleet was collapsing like a wall made of fire facing a hurricane of darkness. Every second, another ship screamed through the comms before disappearing into static. Every explosion lit up the void for only a heartbeat before the swarm drowned it again. The swarm mind advanced slowly, deliberately, savoring the moment, its massive wings spreading wider with each step toward the Alios. It was not rushing. It was confident, too confident. It had crushed countless civilizations. Humanity was simply another meal. But even in the face of extinction, the Alios didn't fall back. Admiral Elena Cross stood in the center of the bridge with steady legs and burning eyes, surrounded by chaos. Sparks rained from flickering ceiling lights. Smoke rose from broken consoles. Officers screamed positions, shouted updates, called for backup that didn't exist. Yet Elena stood unmoving, like a statue carved from the center of a dying star. Admiral. Swarm units breaching Deck 5. Shields down to 40%, no, 30, 20, carrier Avalon lost. Crusader is hit. Fleet is nearly gone, we can't hold this. Elena's voice cut through everything. Maintain defensive wall. No retreat. Her command was insane. Impossible. Hopeless. But humanity didn't run. Rios grabbed her arm, desperation spilling from his eyes. Elena, listen to me. If the swarm mind reaches us, it will tear the Alios apart with you inside. We need to fall back, regroup, anything. Elena didn't look at him. Her eyes were on the planet below. Lurex Prime. Billions of innocent lives trapped under a storm of black wings. Screams were still coming through the comm channels, weak, broken, fading. Their shield was nearly gone. The swarm was minutes away from finishing them. Elena could see the fires from orbit, bright red lines ripping across the continents like open wounds. No retreat, she whispered again, not to Rios, not to the fleet, but to herself. Not for them. The swarm mind finally reached attack distance. Its wings folded inward. Its burning eyes narrowed. Its voice rumbled through every ship like a whispered apocalypse. Who a man's fall. The swarm surged. Thousands, millions, of units charged at the Alios all at once. A tidal wave of claws, wings, blades. The Alios fired every weapon it had. Railguns spat white-hot slugs. Plasma cannons unleashed storms. Missiles screamed across the void. But the swarm swallowed each attack like smoke. Impact. The Alios shook so violently that officers fell from their stations. Red lights exploded across the bridge. Warning sirens howled. The deck tilted sideways. Structural integrity failing. Engineering bay compromised. Shields down, shields down. We can't take another hit. Elena's heart clenched. She looked at Rios, at her officers, at the faces of people she had commanded for years, people who trusted her with their lives. She made the decision she had sworn never to make. Her voice was soft, but carried the weight of destiny. Prepare the Ember Core for manual detonation. The bridge froze. Rios stuttered, Elena, no, no, you can't. It's the only way. But you'll die. She closed her eyes for half a second. I know. A silence deeper than space fell over the room. Officers trembled. One young woman sobbed silently, covering her mouth. Another whispered, Admiral, please, don't. But Elena stepped toward the central console. Humanity's last hope wasn't the Novolance. It wasn't the fleet. It wasn't technology. It was her. A message came through from Lurex Prime. A little girl's voice, faint, shaking. Please, humans, don't let the dark eat us. Elena swallowed hard. Her eyes burned, not with fear, but with love so fierce it could tear the universe apart. Rios, she said quietly, take command of the fleet. Pull them back behind the moon. When the Ember Core detonates, protect who you can. His eyes filled with tears. Elena, I can't let you. You're not letting me, she said with a small sad smile. You're following an order. He bowed his head, fists shaking. Yes, Admiral. Elena turned toward the lift. The smoke parted around her as if the ship itself respected her final walk. She entered the Ember Core chamber alone. The room glowed with impossible light. The Ember Core floated in the center, a cube of ancient starfire, pulsing like a heartbeat. Its heat washed over her. Its power hummed through the floor. Her hands trembled as she touched the control sphere. A memory flashed, her niece drawing a picture of the Alios, writing Auntie Elena saves the galaxy. Elena let a tear fall. I hope you never learn what it costs to save the galaxy, she whispered. The swarm mind now hovered directly in front of the Alios. Its massive jaws opened, revealing a blast of raw energy building inside. It was about to fire. To finish humanity. To destroy Lurex Prime. Elena pressed her hand onto the Ember Core surface. The chamber lights turned blinding white on the bridge. Rios screamed, Elena, don't, but it was too late. The Ember Core detonated. A star was born inside the Alios. Light swallowed everything. The Alios vanished in the explosion. The swarm mind screamed, its entire body splitting under the force. The swarm collapsed as one, units dropping dead like severed nerves. The shockwave engulfed the battlefield, tearing through the enemy like divine fire. Lurex Prime skies cleared. The darkness lifted, silence fell, and where the Alios had once stood proudly, there was nothing. But humanity lived, the fleet survived. The planet survived. Billions survived, and every species in the galaxy whispered the same name, Elena Cross. The woman who lit a star to save strangers. The woman who stood alone in front of the swarm mind. The woman whose sacrifice would be remembered for every century to come. Humanity had shown the galaxy its fury, its heart, its courage, and the galaxy trembled, because they now understood if one human could destroy a god, what could the rest of humanity do?